Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 modding video. Today, we've got a very special mod, a new weapon mod that is very unique. Coming from the Fallout TV show, Her has made an amazing new weapon with a lot of utility and a lot of interesting customization options that make it a very versatile weapon. Before we get into all of that, if you enjoy the videos that I am doing here on YouTube and you want to support that work directly, you can do so over on Patreon. You can use the link down in the description, but of course it is completely optional. I've also been doing quite a bit of interesting stuff over on the Nexus, so you can check that out as well. Now then, let's go ahead and get into today's video. The name of the weapon that we are checking out today is known as the Select Blaster from Her. Her started working on this weapon before the Fallout TV show even came out, using some of the screen grabs and some of the interesting pictures of this weapon before we even got to see it in action. And so that means that we have a pretty interesting rendition of this weapon. After the show came out, I believe they made some modifications to make this work a little bit more like it did in the show, while also adding some options to make it a bit more versatile in Fallout 4 Sandbox. And in my opinion, that is what makes this weapon truly special. Instead of being a one-to-one recreation, it also has a ton of options utilizing the weapon's workbench that not only change the way the weapon looks, but also how it functions in a way that is a little bit more useful than a typical old dart pistol. Now, for those who are unaware, Lucy's gun from the Fallout show is a really cool, weird-looking sci-fi dart pistol that is going to throw out darts and stun your enemies, and that is mirrored here in the mod. It is not going to work exactly the same. It has its own fun custom animations, and it has some upgrades that make it into a totally different kind of weapon, allowing you to deal a lot more damage, more than just a simple stun. But depending on how you want to use this weapon, it could be a tool like a dart gun. It could also have some other interesting effects by utilizing some of the syringer mechanics from the vanilla game, or it could be converted into a totally different energy weapon, and that's definitely one of my favorite ways to run this weapon. But of course, you have the choice to make it however you want. We'll go over every single one of those options later in the video when we start talking about all of the different attachments. Now, as I did already mention, this thing does have custom animations, so it has a brand new custom reload as well as a full suite of custom animations for melee and grenade throwing and all of that fun stuff as well. This thing is also going to have multiple reload styles depending on if you're using that dart functionality. You're going to have to reload after every shot, or if you're using some of the upgraded energy options, it's going to reload a bit differently. I've already touched on this quite a bit, but one of the big pluses with this mod is the amount of customization options. Like I said, there's a ton of different ways to change it cosmetically as well as functionally, but beyond the actual changing meshes, there's also a ton of different styles for this weapon that change the textures of each individual part. And it's not just one skin, there's actually multiple types of skins that you can pair together to change the different colors of the metals and wood furniture and plastics. It's a pretty interesting idea, and it's a way to make the gun exactly how you want it to be, since this is sort of a hero weapon. It's not going to be something that you see all over the place, since it's a little bit unique. It's actually going to be a unique weapon. It's not going to be something that's added to the leveled list. And you know me, typically I do love leveled list integration, but for once, this actually makes sense. This is not something that should be around on everybody. I don't really see why raiders would want to use a dart pistol all the time, but rather this is going to be something that is actually found over in a vault. So, big ol' spoiler warning, if you don't want to know where this thing is located, you want to find it on your own, I'm going to be telling you right now. You want to pick up this weapon, it'll be found over in Vault 114 in the Overseer's office. That is going to be the same vault that you find Nick Valentine in. Now, hypothetically, if you do want more of this weapon for some reason, there actually is a way to get more. Once you do obtain this weapon, you will have to head over to Vault 114, but once you have it, you can then craft it over at the chemistry station, as it will unlock it as a new craftable item, but it won't be there until you find it for the first time. You're basically making duplicates having already seen the original weapon, which is a nice, lore-friendly way to add weapon crafting. Now, when you first receive this weapon, it is going to be in its tranquilizer variant, which is exactly how it was in the Fallout TV show, but you can, of course, modify it then to turn it into all kinds of fun options. I think that is a great reason to want to craft more, so you can have one as sort of the tranq dart, but you can have one in more of a damage dealing role, or some of the other fun options that are available thanks to the tons of modifications for this weapon. As far as main features in the mod go, there's not really too much to talk about without going and checking out further in detail, but there are some other little minor notes that I think are really important. There are many different versions of this mod that you can download. One is the full version with an ESP, and another is a full version with the ESL. Alternatively, if you're really trying to save on space, you can also download a version with all the extra textures, so that is the light version, which also comes with an ESP and ESL format. So if you're really trying to min-max your ability to have more mods, getting the ESL Lite version is probably your way to go. Me personally, I'm using the ESP full version, but you can use this as you need depending on what your load order requires. On top of all that, though, there is even a version of this on Xbox. So if you're on Xbox, not only is this available for PC players, this is available for you console users as well. Now then, I think that covers most of the basics. Let's go ahead and check this thing out in-game, starting off with its stats. So here we are in-game with the Select Air Pistol. I know this mod is called the Select Blaster, but in this configuration, it's known as the Air Pistol since it is a dart gun. Now, when we take a look at the stats here, they're not going to be reflective of every version of this weapon because you can modify it to actually do a ton of damage. But we'll be checking out in its base configuration as a dart gun, and we'll mention some of those upgrades later in the weapons workbench section. So as a dart gun, this thing has a base damage of 2 since it is only going to be stunning enemies, and it does use a new stun dart round that is only available in this mod. It is added with the mod, so you don't need to rely on any requirements or anything like that. It has a fire rate of 2 since you are going to be reloading after every shot. Again, that can change with some of the modifications at the weapons workbench. It has a range of 143, an accuracy of 70, a weight of 5 pounds, and a value of 41 caps. And I have to say, this is a pretty cool looking design. It looks just like the one in the show, but has the options to look even better with some of the different attachments over at the weapons workbench. Now, typically we only look at the base config of the weapon when it comes to stats, but in this case I do want to show off a fully modified version to show you how much these stats can vary. As you can see now, the damage is gone from 2 to 208, and that is because I have it using fusion cells now because it is an energy weapon. And believe it or not, that's the full auto damage because this is a full auto version of the weapon. As you can see, we have the energy auto overcharge capacitor here, which is going to make that happen. It also has some really cool changes to its visual look with the really cool scope here and the muzzle device that just looks awesome. So this thing can change a lot. You'll also notice that this thing has a fire rate of 468, making for a pretty dang powerful energy weapon. This thing is actually very strong in testing in this configuration, as well as some of the other configurations available. So you can really tweak this thing to be, again, more of a tool with that dart gun, or be more of a proper weapon as an energy weapon, which is definitely my favorite way to run this thing. It's not really true to the show that way, but it is pretty dang cool. Now, let's talk about the animations available for this mod. Starting off with the dart gun version. As you see, when you shoot this thing, it pops out the rear, you load in a syringe, and you're ready to go again. So it's a one-time use before you need to reload. And it is pretty dang accurate. You can take out guys in stealth like this very easily. And if you're curious about how it actually works on enemies, well, when we spawn them in, they get stunned immediately and fall over completely paralyzed. And then you can take them out as ever you need to do that. There we go. Now then, there are other versions of this weapon though. This is the dart variant. We also have the ability to make it an energy weapon. As you can see, it becomes a nice little phaser, which is pretty dang cool. And when you reload, it's actually going to pop back out. Silly me, though, didn't get enough fusion cells to do that. There we are. Now we can reload as we need. As you can see, it pops out a nice little cell, and then you pop it back in. You can fire this thing 20 times in this configuration, but there are also configurations where you want to have this thing in, say, full auto. It's a pretty dang competent little energy pistol, and it looks quite cool as well. Very chrome, very different for Fallout, but it is definitely lore-friendly since this thing is coming straight from the show. Now then, let's talk about the weapon attachments, because there are a lot of them, and I mean a lot. If you are interested in this weapon at all, I recommend sticking around, because there's some really interesting options here that really change the way the weapon functions. So if you're at least interested in how this thing looks, there may be a version of this weapon that is right for you. Starting off with its weapon calibration. Now, this is a really interesting category because you get to choose different levels of calibration. For example, close quarters calibration will improve your hipfire accuracy, and there's 3 levels to that. There's also a reduced weight option, a ranged option as well. So depending on what you want to spec into, there are different levels for each of these. It's a really weird way to do balancing. It's not something we've seen before, but it is an option that is provided here with this weapon. So you can really tweak this thing to be how you want. If you want it to be close quarters, you want it to be a long-range sniper, or you want it to be really lightweight, you can mess with that as you see fit. For barrels, we have a ton of options. We have the standard barrel here, a snub style barrel, which is just shorter, a compressor, a heavy hitter, a light hitter, a solid blaster, a ray gun style barrel, a ray gun snub barrel, a blade style barrel, a blade snub barrel, a weighted barrel, which is sort of octagonal, a weighted snub, a blaster style, a blaster snub, a ported 44 style, a ported 44 snub style, and that is going to be all of the options there. So 2 different versions for each of these barrels, and there are a lot of them for, in my opinion, no reason. These are a lot of options here, but it's definitely great for those of you who want to make this look however you want. I especially like the DL44 style right here. It's probably my favorite option of the bunch. We also have grips. We have the standard style grip with a little hexagon pattern. We have the classic style, tactical style, comfort, light, and commanding. All have their own different looks depending on what you enjoy. They're all slightly different in one way or another. Then we have the option to actually change how this weapon functions. So the Tranquilizer is going to be the standard style that fires the stun darts that will paralyze enemies. However, you can make it function like a Syringer in the vanilla game, which is going to allow you to load in different darts based on the Syringer darts in the vanilla game, which is pretty cool. Has a nice option to use either the standard functionality or the vanilla functionality, depending on what you like. However, my favorite way is to run this thing as an energy weapon, in which case it has capacitors similar to vanilla. Standard, all the way up through overcharged, and then automatic versions of each of those as well, which is a little bit powerful. One might even say a bit overpowered with 208 automatic damage, but it is still pretty dang cool. Now, we also have an option for different sights. We have the option for no sights, the standard iron rear sight, alternate iron sights, which is a nice little peephole, glow sights, alternate glow sights, a reflex sight, which is pretty small, one with a dot as well. The regular is going to be a circle. Then we also have the reflex scope short, which is going to add a little bit of magnification while still being a reflex sight. Again, available with either a circle or dot. We have the reflex scope, which adds even more magnification in both variants. A short scope, a short night vision scope, a short recon scope, medium versions of each of those scopes, as well as long versions of each of those scopes as well. Then we have the option for materials. We have the standard barrel material, blue anodized barrels, bronze barrels, copper barrels, gold barrels, green barrels, gunmetal barrels, iridescent barrels, red anodized barrels, rusty barrels, select barrels, steel barrels, and white plastic barrels. Maybe if you wanted to make this into sort of an institute gun. Then we have options for handling, which we have common and advanced, which is going to change the experienced weapon handler. I don't actually know what that does. I'm assuming faster reload speed? It doesn't really say that, but that's what my guess is. Then for grip colors, we have the standard grip. Bronze-plated, copper-plated, gold-plated, iridescent, ivory, leather grip light, rubber grip, steel-plated grip, white plastic grip, wood grip, blue-stained wood grip, and red-stained wood grip. We have the option to throw on different logos. We have the empty logo, a Brotherhood of Steel, Enclave Gunner, Institute Minutemen, Nuka-Cola, Nuka-Cola Red, Railroad, Riley's Rangers Green, the Select Series logo, and the Vault Boy logo. And these are actually located... Well, I'm not really sure where they're located, to be honest. I can't really see it in the preview menu. I believe that I had that issue before with a Nihar gun. I think it doesn't show up in the preview menu. It's something you can only really see when you're looking at it in-game. Then we have options for all of the colors we saw before. This time it is affecting the receiver. And if I recall correctly, they are mostly the same, except now you can actually change it out to be made of wood. Don't know why, but you can do that. Of course, you have all of the other options that were there previously as well. Same thing for some of the other metals, which are going to be the accent metals here. We have all of the same options that we saw before, including the wood options. And then even more with the nuts and bolts here. You can really customize the color options for this thing to make some funky little designs. And just to give you an idea of what that customization actually looks like when put together, here's a little one I made here that's mostly black with gold accents and a wood grip. You can definitely make this thing your own in however way you want to, which is really cool. Especially if you craft multiple variants, one to be a dart gun and one to be sort of a blaster. You can make them look completely different with different color schemes, which I think is a really nice option. So that is all of the attachments. Wonderful work by Nihar, as always, adding tons of customization for the user. Almost too much. Of course, there is no such thing as too much customization. Having the ability to personalize weapons is definitely one of my favorite options, not only for mods, but just for video games in general. So, if you want to try this mod out for yourself, it is a great recreation of the Fallout TV show Lucy's Blaster, known now as the Select Blaster or Select Dart Gun. However you want to use it, this thing is really, really cool and has some customization options. Even if you don't care about the TV show, I think it's just a really cool weapon. It's a really cool energy weapon as well, which we don't see a lot of if you do decide to use it that way. Alternatively, it's a great dart gun, which we also don't have a lot of. So, however you want to use this thing, it's got a use for somebody. If you want to try this thing out for yourself, it will be linked down in the description as always. And of course, it's available on PC as well as Xbox. If you'd like to support the work I do here on YouTube or the mods I make on Nexus, again, you can check out the link down in the description to check me out on Patreon. But of course, that is completely optional. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like. And as always, I will see you all in the next one. Peace!